Jeffrey, I don't know whether you ever played with neutral umpires officiating, but I did in the World Cups, and I think it's a tremendous idea because it gets down to a situation where you never actually look at the finger of bias. You accept a wrong decision from the umpire without interrupting the game. The flow of the game is not interrupted. You just carry on.
Yes, I agree with that. Everybody says, well, all umpires should be neutral. Well, we know they are trying to be. But you're never going to stop players who are on tour, and I did that many times in many countries, feeling that the home umpires are just a little bit erring on the side of the home team. Now, I know in England, when I played home series in my country, in England, teams came from abroad, and everybody says, well, English umpires are good, but they had the same feeling that sometimes we were favourably treated, the English batsmen or the English bowlers, and I thought that Imran Khan's voiced it for everybody a few years ago when he really publicly came out and said it's time we had neutral umpires or umpires from a separate country than the two playing.
Yes, I think the word neutral perhaps is used wrongly because umpires are supposed to be neutral. I think we should be talking about third country umpires. But then even third country umpires will make mistakes. You could have a situation where a third country umpire in an India-Pakistan game, if he's coming in from Sri Lanka, he could be accused of bias as well, wouldn't he?
Well, I don't think in that situation. I mean, for instance, if India and Pakistan were playing, I think it'd be wise to have a New Zealand, an Australian or an Englishman, somebody, vastly long way away. And then they'll make bad decisions, they'll make poor decisions, but it'd be easy to accept, won't it? Because nobody can point the finger that they're biased. Biased against whom? They don't come from anywhere near those two countries. And I think same in England, Our country in England are very reticent about having umpires from, say, India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, and I don't see why. I don't see why we should set ourselves up in England as being the best in the world.
Yes, I think the reason why a lot of people feel that English umpires are the best is because you have a lot of former players.
That does help, definitely.
Who come in and umpire. And I think the players, having played the game at the top level, maybe not at the test level, but at the county level, at the first class level, do understand the tricks that players can get up to when appealing. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why they are in a position to take a much better decision, give a more correct decision than a person who's never played at that highest level.
I also think, if we were going to have umpires from a separate country than the two playing, travelling around the world, and it was made financially good enough for those umpires, that the pay was better, then you'll get more ex-players from countries besides England wanting to join the umpires' ranks. It's because the pay is so poor that ex-players, many of them, don't go into it. I mean, you've got one in India, Venkat, I can't pronounce his full name,
Venkatraghavan.
That's it. Played at Derbyshire. He's made great strides forward from being a former test player straight into a test umpire, and everybody I know in the India-England series totally respects him because he was a former player, knows it inside out, he knows all the tricks of the trade, and I think that could happen if they made the pay better.
Right, I think we should have a panel of the top umpires where you have all the captains in the world before the ICC meeting in June or July. The captains of the world come together, talk about a lot of the technical aspects of the game, umpiring being one of them, give their opinion on the umpires, set up a panel, and that panel can be easily sponsored. There are far too many sponsors around now, and there's not a problem with that. You can find the sponsors, and the umpires can go around, and we'll have a lot less acrimony than is there now.
That's what we want, lot less acrimony. We want that out of the game.
Yes, I think because in a sense it takes away from the game, the pleasure of the game. Everybody pointing fingers at each other is not the way this game was meant to be played.
We agree.
That's right.
Now then, Sonny, what are we going to do about these slow over rates?
Well, I think we already have a certain over rate for the day fixed up. But I still think that we could get maybe another 6 to 10 overs more per day.
Well, you know, when I first started, and I don't want to dwell on past, we all tend to do that and say, well, it was better in my day. But I mean, we are reasonably present day players. We've only just finished. When I started in the 60s playing test match cricket, there were fast bowlers then as well as spinners. They were bowling 18, 19, 20 overs per hour without any problem. Today they can't even do 15 overs an hour and do 90 overs in a day.
Well, I think to a great extent it's also due to the captains who keep on changing the field after every boundary has been hit or every time the ball is edged between the slips or something like that. You have the captains adjusting the fields. The bowlers are walking back to their mark a lot slower than in the earlier days perhaps. And the fact that some run-ups are unnecessarily long.
I did a little calculation. When I got my 100th 100 at Headingley in 1977, there were 87 overs bowled in the day. Now, Bradman was the greatest batsman of all time. His record says so. He got 300 at Headingley, 300 in 48. So there were runs galore all over the place, which must be very difficult for the bowlers and fielders. Yet they bowled 137 overs in the day.
Well, they had a lot of spinners operating also. Now I think you have pretty ordinary medium pacers who just bowl a line and length, who try and restrict the batsman from scoring. I think every team has got one medium pacer. They have two maybe attacking bowlers, and they have a medium pacer to keep things quiet. And that's the reason why the over rates are coming down every year.
This business of fining the players isn't working. They've got match referees fining the players for slow over rates. And all that's happening, the players are just ignoring it because they say, well, we earn enough money from winning the match and man of the match. Sponsors are popping out a bit of money to us. And so we'll just pay the fine and we'll not bother. I think they've got to go to some much more serious penalty.
Yes, I think the penalty should be in such a way that it actually affects the result of the match. We've had a situation where over rates have been deliberately slowed down. When a team has looked like going down maybe 2-0 in a 5-test match series, for them it's easier to pay the fine and just be 1-0 down than increase the over rate and lose the match, because it's very difficult to come back in a 5-test match series when you're 2 down than when you're only 1 down.
Well, I have a suggestion that if they take 90 overs a day, which they are now, which I still think and we agree is too low, if you said they have to bowl 30 overs per session, and like what has been happening in this series, if they only bowl 28 overs by lunchtime, the fielding side should be penalised 2 overs times 10 runs per over. So there'll be 20 runs given to the batting team. And then 30 overs between lunch and tea. If they were 1 over short, they'll be penalised another 10 runs for that over, which is a very high penalty. And if at the end of play, the final session, they're another over short, they'll be penalised another 10 runs. And I think what would happen, aside fielding or bowling, would feel, well, look, we can't afford to give away this many runs. It's going to affect the state of the game. We're going to lose it. So what would happen? You really wouldn't have any penalties. They'd just get a damn move on, wouldn't they?
Yes, I think so. I can't understand why batsmen should be made to play longer than the scheduled hours of play. If you're scheduled to play between 10 and 6, why should a batsman be asked to concentrate for an extra 20 minutes or 15 minutes because the light is good and the fielding side can make up the over rate? The scheduled hours of play are fixed 10 to 6. Within that period of time, unless there is some other reason for the delays, there should be the number of overs bowled. The batsman should not be asked to concentrate extra.
I agree. And it's bad on the umpires having to stay out longer than the normal hours. And it's bad for the public who've had to travel a long way to the game and have a long way to go home. It should finish in a set time with very good cricket and good over rates.
Yes, Jeffrey, I think something that affects the state of the game is what is required to be brought in. That kind of legislation will ensure that your over rates are perfect. The issue of captaincy always generates a lot of debate, doesn't it? In India particularly, you have lots of people coming forward with their views about a particular player being the captain or somebody else being the captain. What do you reckon really should be the qualities to make a good captain?
Well, I think I was lucky at Yorkshire, particularly in the 60s. We were a good side then, haven't been for 15 years or so, but I grew up under Brian Close, very forthright captain of Yorkshire, and Raymond Illingworth, who wasn't captain of Yorkshire. He went on to be a very fine captain of England. And I think there are two parts to captaincy. I suppose you could say there are many parts, but if I were to split it into two, one is the technical side, great knowledge of the game, because cricket is a game of nuances, like pieces of chess. You move them around, don't you, for different batsmen. You place your fielders in different places. And the other thing is about handling people. Now, Mike Brearley was brilliant at that for me. And I think you've got to look at that now. When you're looking at somebody who's tactically good and somebody who's good at handling people, it's very rare to get somebody who's brilliant at both facets. That's the difficulty.
Yes, but then do you reckon that a captain should be one of the boys, or should he be a bit of a loner, a bit aloof from the rest of the team? Because you've had players who cannot possibly always be part of the team in the sense that they will not go out with the boys. Bradman apparently was a person who preferred to be on his own at the end of the day's play, didn't mix around too much with the boys, but he was talked about as being the best captain ever.
Well, I think a little bit like captain in the army, just like a captain of a cricket team. He's got to know the guys under him. He's got to know them reasonably well and know how to deal with different ones, different characters, and he uses his sergeant major to help him. And he might go out with the players now and again, or with the guys under him, just like a captain at cricket should occasionally go out with them. But I think he's always a little bit at arm's length, isn't he? He's not with them every day or every night. He's just that little bit away from them. And I think that's the same at cricket. You can't be one of the boys totally. Get on with them, but they've got to know that you've got the stripes on, you're the boss.
Yes, but at the end of the day, a captain is only as good as his team is. And if he's got a terrible team, however good a captain he might be,
I agree on that.
He would not be able to produce the results. But if he's a terrible captain and he's got a great team, he's got a team of 10 brilliant players, if not the best, the greatest players, he could still be winning matches.
That's right. I have played under all kinds, some bad, some good. But the good captains knew what they wanted to do. Like Illingworth was very good, very tactical and technical, quite strong. Took a bit of advice, but not from too many people. I think it's not a consensus, it's not a democracy. You don't say in the dressing room, who wants to bowl, and then people put their hand up. I think you've got to get a couple of senior players who you respect and admire, take an odd view from them, but you've got to be your own man. There's no point in you being captain if you're going to sort of have a democratic vote. You've got to pull the strings.
Yes, but even some of the senior players might be in a situation where they might have captaincy ambitions, and in which case they might not always give the best possible advice.
Sack him.
What?
Get rid of him. Can't do with people like that. You've got to tell the captain exactly what you believe is right, even if it's against yourself.
Yes, but I think you could get senior players who are performing on the field of play, getting lots of runs, maybe getting lots of wickets, taking brilliant catches. You can't sack him, but they might possibly be the kind of people in the team who might not always be behind the captain.
Then don't ask him for advice. Just tell him to do his job and leave it at that. Go to people who you respect. A couple of guys you really respect, admire, and know are going to be very honest and give you decent advice. But at all times, be your own man. I'm sure of that.
And how much of winning the toss is an important part of captaincy,
You
Jeffrey?
win it too much against me, I tell you that.
Jeffrey, you've had a long, long career and you've played on different kind of wickets right through. In England, of course, you get the opportunity to play on different wickets practically every day because of the weather and the conditions that apply in England. Would you therefore prefer to play on wickets where the bat dominates the ball or the ball dominates the bat?
Neither. I like a competition where it is a contest. Slightly in the batsman's favour, because if it's just a low-scoring game, the bowlers are totally dominating. You're just not going to get enough interest for the spectator, and batsmen are going to get bowled out too quickly. But I think it's got to be a little bit in the batsman's favour. You want to see a few runs, say 60-40, even 70-30. But I hate flat, boring batting pitches. Now that's from me, a batsman, and you, a batsman, because, you know, everybody's getting runs then.
Yeah, so what would, in your opinion, be the ideal kind of pitch? You have a wicket which starts to seam in the beginning, or would you like a wicket which starts to turn on the first day?
Well, I'd like groundsmen to be told not to leave any grass on. Far too many pitches, particularly in England, will be left with grass on. And in the last 10, 12 years of my career, when in test matches the side winning the toss didn't bat first, because there was something in the pitch with green grass, or the groundsman had sprinkled it with water to make it a little damp, so the seam bowlers made it move and swing and all over the place. And I think that's wrong. I think they should be told to prepare the driest possible surface, ready to play even a day before the match or even 2 days. See, we don't get as hot a sun as you do in India. And then if you start on a dry pitch, it will turn. And I think that's good for the game, having spinners. And seam bowlers always get in the game, don't they? They've got a new ball.
Yes. Would you therefore leave wickets uncovered?
I liked uncovered pitches because there was a variety, a spice in the game. I mean, if you were lucky enough to bat the first day on a flat, good pitch and get runs, next day, when it might be my turn to bat, the first thing I'd do when I got up was jump up, open the curtain and see if it had rained overnight, because that would be the most important thing to me, not breakfast or a cup of tea. Would I be batting on a wet, sticky pitch? Or would I get the opportunity to bat like you on a good pitch? And so it would reverse itself when I batted first.
Yep.
And I think that's a good variety for the spectator who comes on a morning of a match as well as the players. You're not quite sure what you're going to get. I think variety is the spice of life. You must have that.
So you certainly wouldn't be in favour of artificial pitches?
No, because I think if you have artificial pitches, that artificial grass, it's too uniform, it's too similar, it's too easy and predictable to get one way of playing. What makes you a great player, and one or two others, is that you've been able to play well, to bat well, score many runs, not only in your own country of India, the pitches you were brought up on and used to, but you've gone to West Indies against their fast bowlers and hard bouncy pitches made runs. You've gone to England where it seams, it swings, it turns, it does everything. You've made runs. I fielded for your double 100 at the Oval. You've gone to New Zealand, which have low, slow pitches, and Australia, which have bouncy pitches, fast pitches. And that's what makes a great player, a great batsman, a great bowler, to be able to do it at home and abroad over a long period of time. And I think it's vitally important to have variety.
Yes, I think you're very right, but I must correct you. I don't think you fielded when I got the double 100. You had a back injury or something and were not on the field. But would you then say that the ICC should come forward and tell all the member countries to have a certain type of wicket? Because often you find touring sides complaining that they have been made to play on wickets tailor-made for the home team strength.
I think England's possibly the worst place where you can get these seaming, grassy, damp pitches, which I don't think are good for cricket. I don't mind turning pitches, because I think far too often in Test cricket we're not getting the spinner in the game. So England's recent series, where they've had to play on 3 turning pitches, I think is great for the game to get the spinners in. You know, if you play cricket and there are no spinners in the game, it's like playing chess without the knights or the bishops or the rooks, and the game is far worse. It's a lesser game because you're not getting that variety.
Jeffrey, over the years, the equipment in the game has changed considerably. The bats, the pads, the boots, the gloves, and now we even have the helmet.
The biggest change has been the helmet, hasn't it? I mean, these days, they're drilled up like American football players. I'm glad that people aren't getting serious injuries by using helmets, but I must say, as a traditionalist, it doesn't look very good.
Well, in the old days when you played, and we don't want to harp too much into the old days, but not too many people got hit on the head. All right, there were not too many short pitch deliveries perhaps bowled, not too many of the quick bowlers in one side. Every team had 2 fast bowlers, maybe not 4. But still, I think when you didn't have the helmet on, batsmen kept their eyes on the ball and then they swayed out of the way or got their arms in front to protect themselves. But I think with the helmet, the first reaction of most batsmen seems to be to tuck their chin into the shoulder, take their eyes off the ball.
Yeah, they freeze a little bit. And the other fact is, I noticed that more batsmen are being brave about having a hook or a pull at the fast bowler because they've got this big helmet on. And they think, well, if it hits me, it'll only sort of rattle around in my ears a little bit, but it won't actually hurt me. And they're getting a false impression that they can hook and pull and do things, where if they just had a cap, they wouldn't try it.
Well, look at leg guards, for example, as well. I think the leg guards have, changed considerably. In the old days, they had leg guards which were far too heavy. And if you had a long innings, I'm pretty certain, your legs were very sore, your hamstrings, your thighs, everything must have been sore like hell. But today they have these super lightweight leg guards which really don't weigh anything.
That's a good plus, but I'm not so sure about the gloves. The gloves I've found over the last number of years are not as good as they used to be. They seem to be filled with a kind of K-pop filling instead of the old horsehair. I mean, many of the gloves years ago were made in India with lots of horsehair in, and they were great protection for the batsman. Today you get more and more finger injuries.
And the bats have become heavier. In the old days, mind you, the bats were feather light, and now you have these heavy bats. Young Tendulkar uses a 3-pound something bat, and there's so much of wood in the bat that you've just got to middle it. You don't really have to be a big strong fella. You've just got to middle it and the ball goes soaring into the stands.
It is. I'm not so sure that's a good thing. I think we're getting too many players who are hitting the ball hard rather than technically correct. I asked Len Hutton, the great Sir Len Hutton, who died about a year ago, and he used about £2 4 ounces. He just wouldn't be able to believe Tendulkar, the great young rising star genius he is going to be, and having a £3 bat. He's nearly smaller than you.
No, he's just about the same height. But I think the heavy bats have also cut down on 2 shots which are so productive, the cut and the pull. The bats are so heavy now that very few batsmen actually cut the ball or very few batsmen pull the ball. The short over-length ball, which used to be pulled, is not being done so often as in the past.
Yeah, I like the lighter bats. I always felt that batting was an artistic profession. You were not there to be a butcher just to hit the ball hard. It was artistic. The great artists of the game, yourself, Javed Miandad, Hutton, Compton, there were artists at work. You've had some great Indian princes who people have written about as lovely shot players, graceful players, not just standing there hitting it as hard as possible. And that's what I like to think about batsmanship.
And what do you think of the latest trend to wear dark glasses on the field of play?
The place for dark glasses is like you and me here having an interview out in the sunshine. That's the place for them, not on the cricket field.
But certainly it must be helping them during the night game or something like that. Or else
It certainly didn't help England against India recently, did it?